Women over 60, listen to me carefully, because what I'm about to share will help you recognize genuine love when it appears in your life. Relationship experts who study long-term partnerships have identified 7 specific phrases that men consistently say when they've moved beyond casual interest into deep, committed love. These aren't the obvious "I love you" declarations. Those are important, but relatively easy to say. These are the phrases that reveal a man's true feelings through what he communicates about his vision of the future, his fears, his values, and how he sees you fitting into the whole of his life. At our age, we've heard enough empty words to know that what someone says matters far less than the consistency and depth behind those words. But there are certain phrases that are nearly impossible to fake because they require genuine emotional investment, vulnerability, and a level of commitment that men only express when they're truly all in. When you start hearing these 7 things from a man, you're hearing evidence of deep love. Not just attraction, not just companionship, but the kind of love that sustains partnership through decades. The challenge is that many women miss these phrases because they're not looking for them, or they dismiss them as casual comments, rather than recognizing them as profound declarations. We've been conditioned to wait for grand romantic gestures or dramatic proclamations, when in reality, the deepest love often reveals itself through quieter, more specific statements that show how completely you've become integrated into a man's life, thoughts, and future. Poet Rainer Maria Rilke wrote, "For one human being to love another, that is perhaps the most difficult of all our tasks, the ultimate, the last test and proof, the work for which all other work is but preparation." The 7 phrases we're discussing today are evidence that a man has done that work, that he's moved through surface attraction and comfortable companionship into the territory of deep, committed love. If you've been wondering whether a particular man truly loves you, if you've been trying to read between the lines of what he says, if you want to understand what genuine love sounds like from mature men who know their own hearts, you're in the right place. This channel is dedicated to helping women recognize authentic connection and avoid wasting time on relationships that will never deepen into real love. Consider subscribing if you want to understand the language of genuine love at our age. We're building a community of women who know the difference between words that mean nothing and words that reveal everything.
I've been thinking about how we could... The first phrase that reveals deep love is when a man starts saying, "I've been thinking about how we could," followed by ideas, plans, or possibilities for your shared future. This isn't the same as suggesting next weekend's activities. This is him actively thinking about your life together, problem solving around how to make things work better, imagining possibilities that include both of you, and bringing you into his mental planning in ways that assume your continued presence. Relationship expert Dr. John Gottman's research on successful couples found that partners who build love maps, detailed knowledge of each other's worlds, and active planning for shared futures have significantly stronger relationships. When a man says, "I've been thinking about how we could," he's showing you that he's building that love map, that you occupy his thoughts even when you're apart, that he's invested in creating a future that includes you. Margaret first noticed this with Thomas about 4 months into their relationship. He said one evening, "I've been thinking about how we could spend more time together without either of us giving up the activities we love. What if we coordinated our schedules so we both keep our individual commitments, but plan 2 specific evenings a week and 1 full weekend day that's always ours?" The specificity and thoughtfulness behind this revealed something profound. Thomas had been actively thinking about their relationship, considering how to honor both their needs for independence and their desire for connection, and coming up with actual solutions rather than just hoping things would work out. That phrase, "I've been thinking about how we could," told me that I was occupying real mental and emotional space for him. He wasn't just reacting to me when we were together, he was actively thinking about us, planning for us, imagining possibilities for how to make our relationship better. That's love showing itself through thoughtful investment. Linda heard variations of this phrase regularly from James. "I've been thinking about how we could spend the holidays. I've been thinking about how we could plan a trip that includes your family. I've been thinking about how we could handle this situation with your daughter." Each time, the phrase revealed that he was mentally engaged with their shared life, thinking through challenges and possibilities, including her perspective in his problem solving. Dating coach Matthew Hussey explains why this matters. When a man is deeply in love, you become part of how he thinks about his life. He's not just making his own plans and seeing if you fit. He's actively thinking about we and us and how to create a shared life that works for both people. That shift from I to we in his thinking is profound evidence of love. Helen noticed that David said this phrase before making any significant decisions. "I've been thinking about how we could handle my daughter visiting for a month. I've been thinking about how we could approach my retirement planning together. I've been thinking about how we could integrate our friend groups more." The consistent pattern of including her in his thinking before decisions were made showed her that he saw her as a true partner, not just a companion. When a man says, "I've been thinking about how we could," he's telling you that you're integrated into his mental life, that he's invested in your shared future enough to actively problem solve, that he values your partnership enough to think through how to make it work better, and that he sees challenges as things to solve together rather than obstacles to the relationship. The key? Listen for this phrase and variations of it. When a man consistently brings you into his planning and problem solving with, "I've been thinking about how we could," he's showing you that deep love has taken root.
Phrase number 2. What do you think we should do? The second phrase that reveals deep love is, "What do you think we should do?" Asked genuinely when facing decisions that affect both of you, or even just him individually. This phrase shows that he values your perspective enough to actively seek it, that he sees you as a partner whose input matters in his decision-making, and that he's moved beyond making independent choices to actually wanting your involvement in shaping the direction of his life. Relationship therapist Dr. Sue Johnson's research on emotional bonds found that couples with the strongest attachments are those where partners turn toward each other for input, support, and guidance, rather than making decisions in isolation. When a man asks, "What do you think we should do?" he's demonstrating that turning toward behavior that characterizes deep love. Patricia heard this phrase from Martin in a way that revealed how much he valued her input. He was considering a job opportunity that would require significant changes to his schedule, and instead of deciding and then informing her, he sat down with her and asked genuinely, "What do you think we should do? This affects both of us, and I want your perspective before I make any decision." The "we" in that question was everything. Patricia explained. He wasn't asking my permission or looking for me to just agree with what he'd already decided. He genuinely wanted my input because he saw this as a decision that affected us as a partnership, not just him as an individual. That level of inclusion is how love manifests in daily life. Ruth noticed that Kenneth consistently asked this question about decisions, large and small. What do you think we should do about Thanksgiving this year? What do you think we should do about this issue with my son? What do you think we should do about planning our summer? Each time, he was genuinely interested in her perspective and willing to be influenced by it. Dating expert Evan Mark Katz notes, "Men who deeply love their partners want those partners' input because they value their perspective and judgment. They're not looking for someone to just go along with their decisions. They're looking for genuine partnership where both people shape the direction of their shared life. Dorothy experienced this with Richard when he was facing a health decision. Instead of just deciding on his own or informing her after the fact, he said, "This is complicated and I'm not sure what the right choice is. What do you think we should do?" The inclusion of her perspective in something so personal showed her how deeply he trusted and valued her. Helen heard this from David, even about decisions that primarily affected him. "I'm thinking about downsizing my house. What do you think we should do about that?" The fact that he saw a decision about his house as something that required her input because it would affect their future together revealed how integrated their lives had become in his mind. Have you experienced the difference between men who make decisions alone versus those who genuinely seek your input? Share your thoughts in the comments. When a man says, "What do you think we should do?" he's revealing that he values your judgment and perspective, that he sees you as a genuine partner in decision-making, that he wants your input before making choices that affect you both, and that he's willing to be influenced by your perspective rather than just seeking validation for decisions he's already made. The key? Notice whether he genuinely seeks your input on meaningful decisions or just informs you after he's already decided. Deep love shows itself in the former.
Phrase number 3. I was wrong, and I'm sorry. The third phrase that reveals deep love is, I was wrong, and I'm sorry. A genuine apology that takes full responsibility without deflection, justification, or minimizing. Men who deeply love you are willing to be vulnerable enough to admit mistakes, humble enough to apologize without defensiveness, and invested enough in the relationship to take accountability rather than protecting their ego. Psychologist Dr. Harriet Lerner, who wrote extensively about apologies, notes, "A genuine apology is one of the most profound expressions of love because it requires putting the relationship ahead of your ego." When someone can say, "I was wrong and I'm sorry," without qualification or justification, they're showing that they value the relationship more than being right. Linda heard this from James after a disagreement where he'd been dismissive of something that mattered to her. The next day, he came to her and said clearly, "I was wrong yesterday. I was dismissive when you were trying to share something important to you, and I'm sorry. That wasn't respectful, and you deserved better." The lack of justification or explanation was what made it meaningful, Linda explained. He didn't say, "I'm sorry, but I was tired," or "I'm sorry you felt that way." He took full responsibility, named specifically what he'd done wrong, and apologized genuinely. That vulnerability and accountability is only possible when someone loves you deeply enough to prioritize the relationship over their ego. Margaret noticed that Thomas could apologize genuinely when he'd made mistakes. "I was wrong to make that decision without discussing it with you first. I'm sorry. I should have included you in that conversation." The specificity and lack of defensiveness revealed his maturity and his commitment to the relationship. Relationship expert Esther Perel writes, "The ability to apologize genuinely without defensiveness is a sign of emotional maturity and deep care. It says, 'This relationship matters more to me than being right, and I'm willing to be vulnerable to preserve our connection.'" Helen experienced this with David after he'd snapped at her during a stressful day. Later that evening, he said, "I was wrong to take my stress out on you. I'm sorry. You didn't deserve that, and I'll work on handling my stress better so it doesn't affect how I treat you." The commitment to future change, combined with the genuine apology, showed Helen that David was invested in being a good partner, not just in being seen as one. He was willing to examine his behavior and commit to growth, which is only possible when you love someone enough to do the work. Ruth heard this from Kenneth after he'd forgotten something important to her. "I was wrong to forget. I'm sorry.
I know this mattered to you, and I should have put it on my calendar so I wouldn't forget. That was careless, and I apologize. The accountability without excuse-making revealed Kenneth's character and his respect for Ruth. He didn't justify his forgetfulness or minimize its impact. He took full responsibility and apologized genuinely. When a man says, "I was wrong and I'm sorry," without justification or defensiveness, he's revealing that he values the relationship more than his ego, that he's mature enough to take accountability, that he respects you enough to offer genuine apology rather than deflection, and that he's invested in the relationship's health enough to be vulnerable. The key: distinguish between genuine apologies, "I was wrong and I'm sorry," and non-apologies, "I'm sorry you felt that way," or "I'm sorry but." Deep love shows itself in the former. Phrase number 4 is, "I'm proud of you." Genuine acknowledgement of your achievements, growth, or character that shows he sees you clearly and celebrates who you are. This isn't casual praise or generic compliments. This is specific recognition of something you've accomplished, overcome, or demonstrated that he genuinely admires and takes pleasure in witnessing. Psychologist Dr. Gary Chapman's work on appreciation in relationships shows that specific acknowledgement of a partner's qualities and achievements is one of the most powerful ways to express love. When a man says, "I'm proud of you," he's communicating that he sees you clearly, admires what he sees, and takes genuine joy in your success and growth. Dorothy heard this from Richard after she'd navigated a difficult situation with her adult daughter. Richard said genuinely, "I'm proud of you for how you handled that. You were clear about your boundaries, but loving in your delivery. That took real strength, and I'm proud to be with someone who can do that." The specificity made it meaningful, Dorothy explained. He wasn't just saying something nice. He was acknowledging a specific thing he'd witnessed and admired. That kind of seeing and celebrating is only possible when someone loves you deeply enough to actually pay attention to who you are and what you're working on. Margaret experienced this from Thomas when she achieved something she'd been working toward. "I'm proud of you for finishing that project. I know how much work you put into it, and watching you persist through the challenges was inspiring. You should feel really good about what you accomplished." The recognition of her effort and persistence, not just the outcome, showed Margaret that Thomas was paying attention to her journey, not just celebrating surface-level achievements. Dating coach Matthew Boggs notes, "When a man is deeply in love, your wins become his wins. He takes genuine pleasure in your success and growth because he's invested in you as a whole person, not just in what you do for him. I'm proud of you is his way of saying, I see you, I admire you, and your success brings me joy." Linda heard this from James in contexts that had nothing to do with him. "I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself in that situation. I'm proud of you for going back to school at this age. I'm proud of you for maintaining those friendships even when it's hard." Each time he was celebrating something about her character or choices that he genuinely admired. Helen noticed that David said this about her growth and character, not just achievements. "I'm proud of you for how you've worked through your relationship with your ex-husband. I'm proud of you for setting those boundaries with your family. I'm proud of you for not letting fear stop you from trying new things." Ruth experienced this from Kenneth when she made difficult choices. "I'm proud of you for choosing what was right for you, even though it disappointed other people. That takes courage, and I'm proud to be with someone who has that kind of integrity." When a man says, "I'm proud of you," he's revealing that he sees you clearly and admires what he sees, that your growth and success bring him genuine joy, that he's paying attention to your journey, not just your outcomes, and that he values your character and choices independently of how they benefit him. The key: listen for "I'm proud of you" about things that have nothing to do with him. That's when you know it's genuine celebration of who you are, not just appreciation for what you do for him. "I can't imagine my life without you." The fifth phrase that reveals deep love is, "I can't imagine my life without you." An acknowledgement that you've become so integrated into a sense of future and well-being that imagining life without you feels incomplete or wrong. This isn't said after 2 dates or even 2 months. This is something men say when they've reached the point where you're no longer an addition to their existing life, but a fundamental part of how they envision their future. Relationship researcher Dr. Helen Fisher's work on love and attachment shows that when people reach deep attachment, their partner becomes integrated into their sense of self and future. When a man says, "I can't imagine my life without you," he's expressing that level of integration. You're not optional. You're essential. Patricia heard this from Martin about 8 months into their relationship during a conversation about the future. Martin said quietly, "I know we haven't been together that long in the grand scheme of things, but I've realized I can't imagine my life without you in it. You've become essential to how I think about everything, my present and my future." The vulnerability in that statement was profound, Patricia explained. He was telling me that I'd become so important that the thought of not having me in his life felt wrong. That's not something men say lightly at our age. That's a declaration of how deeply I'd become woven into his heart and his vision of the future. Helen experienced this from David during a health scare. David told her honestly, "Going through this made me realize I can't imagine facing the rest of my life without you. You've become the person I want beside me for everything, the good and the hard. I don't want to do any of it without you." The context, facing something difficult rather than during a romantic moment, made the declaration even more meaningful. David wasn't caught up in romantic feelings, he was expressing a fundamental truth about how essential Helen had become to his life. Dating expert Logan Urry notes, "When someone says they can't imagine their life without you, they're expressing that you've moved from being a choice they're making to being a fundamental part of who they are and how they see their future. That's deep love. Not just enjoying someone's company, but experiencing them as essential." Linda heard this from James during a conversation about long-term planning. "When I think about retirement, about where I want to be and how I want to spend my time, I can't imagine any of it without you there. You're not part of my future. You are my future." The distinction he made, not part of but are, revealed how completely she'd become integrated into his sense of what mattered and where he was headed. Margaret experienced this from Thomas during a moment when they were discussing her potential job change that might require relocation. Thomas said clearly, "I can't imagine my life without you. So if you need to move, we'll figure out how I can make that work too. You're not negotiable to me." Ruth heard this from Kenneth after they had been together a year. "I keep trying to imagine what my life would look like if we hadn't met, and I can't. You've become so fundamental to how I experience everything that life without you just feels wrong. I can't imagine it, and I don't want to." When a man says, "I can't imagine my life without you," he's revealing that you've become essential to his sense of future and well-being, that you're integrated into how he thinks about everything that matters, that losing you would feel like losing a fundamental part of himself, and that he's committed at the deepest level to keeping you in his life. The key? This phrase only means something when it's backed by consistent action, showing you're integrated into his actual life decisions and future planning, not just his romantic feelings. Phrase number 6 that reveals deep love is, "Tell me what you need." Ask genuinely with openness to actually providing what you express. This shows he understands that love is active, that partnership requires meeting each other's needs, and that he's willing to adjust his behavior based on what would make you feel loved and supported. Dorothy heard this from Richard during a stressful time when she was dealing with family issues. Richard asked simply, "Tell me what you need from me right now. Do you need me to just listen? Or do you need help problem solving? Or do you need space or something else? I want to support you, but I want to do it in the way that actually helps you." The specificity and openness in that question showed me he understood that support looks different in different situations, Dorothy explained. He wasn't assuming he knew what I needed. He was asking me to tell him, and he was genuinely open to providing whatever I said, even if it was just space. Margaret experienced this from Thomas regularly. Tell me what you need from me when you're stressed like this. Tell me what you need from me around the holidays. Tell me what you need from me to feel more secure in this relationship. Each time, Thomas would then actually adjust his behavior based on what Margaret expressed. The asking mattered, but the responding made it meaningful. Dating coach Matthew Hussey explains, most people assume they know what their partner needs and then either provide it or don't. Men who deeply love you actually ask what you need and then work to provide it. That's active love, not passive hoping that what they're offering happens to be what you want. Linda heard this from James after a disagreement. I clearly misread what you needed in that situation. Tell me what you need from me when we're in conflict. How can I show up better for you? The willingness to ask after getting it wrong and then to actually adjust his approach based on her answer showed Linda that James was committed to learning how to love her specifically, not just loving her generically. Helen experienced this from David in practical contexts. Tell me what you need from me to make hosting your family easier. Tell me what you need from me around physical intimacy. I want to make sure you feel desired and comfortable. Ruth noticed that Kenneth asked this question both about big things and small things. Tell me what you need from me this weekend. Tell me what you need from me to support this project you're working on. Tell me what you need from me around time together versus time apart. When a man says, tell me what you need, and then actually responds to what you express, he's revealing that he sees love as active rather than passive, that he's willing to adjust his behavior to meet your specific needs, that he values your well-being enough to ask rather than assume, and that he's committed to learning how to love you specifically rather than loving you generically. The key. The phrase only matters if it's followed by action. Notice whether he asks what you need and then actually adjusts based on your answer. We'll figure it out together. The seventh phrase that reveals deep love is, we'll figure it out together. A commitment to partnership through challenges, rather than abandoning ship when things get difficult. This phrase shows he sees obstacles as things to solve together, rather than reasons to leave. That he's committed to the we, even when the path forward isn't clear. And that he trusts in the partnership enough to face uncertainty together. Psychologist Dr. John Gottman's research found that couples who stay together through difficulties are those who see challenges as us against the problem, rather than you versus me. When a man says, we'll figure it out together, he's expressing that orientation. Whatever the challenge, you're facing it as a team. Patricia heard this from Martin when she was facing a complicated situation with her adult children. Instead of backing away or suggesting she handle it on her own, Martin said clearly, I know this is complicated, but we'll figure it out together. You're not alone in this. The together was everything, Patricia explained. He wasn't taking over or trying to fix it for me, but he also wasn't leaving me to handle it alone. He was committing to being alongside me while we figured out the path forward. That's partnership. That's love that sustains through actual life, not just the easy moments. Helen experienced this from David when they were navigating how to blend their families and friend groups. I know this feels complicated right now, but we'll figure it out together. We'll try things, adjust what doesn't work, and keep working on it until we find what feels right for both of us. The willingness to commit to the process without needing to have all the answers immediately showed Helen that David was in this for the long term, through the messy figuring out process, not just the easy parts. Dating expert Evan Mark Katz notes, men who deeply love you don't abandon you when things get hard. They lean in with, we'll figure it out together. That commitment to partnership through difficulty is one of the clearest signs of mature, lasting love. Linda heard this from James when they were facing a decision about her potential relocation for work. This feels complicated, and I don't know yet what the right answer is, but we'll figure it out together. We'll look at all the options, talk through how each one would work, and find a solution that honors both our needs. Margaret experienced this from Thomas during a health issue. I know you're scared, and honestly, I am too, but we'll figure it out together. We'll get the information we need, make the best decisions we can, and I'll be with you through all of it. Ruth heard this from Kenneth when they were navigating family dynamics around the holidays. I know everyone has different expectations and needs, and it feels impossible to honor all of them, but we'll figure it out together. Let's talk through what matters most to each of us and build from there. When a man says we'll figure it out together, he's revealing that he's committed to the partnership through challenges, that he sees obstacles as things to solve together rather than reasons to leave, that he's committed to the we even when the path forward isn't clear, and that he trusts in the partnership enough to face uncertainty together. The key? This phrase means everything when challenges actually arise. Listen for whether he says it and then actually stays present to work through difficulties together. When a man deeply loves you, he'll start saying these 7 things. I've been thinking about how we could. What do you think we should do? I was wrong and I'm sorry. I'm proud of you. I can't imagine my life without you. Tell me what you need, and we'll figure it out together. These phrases reveal integration, partnership, accountability, celebration, commitment, active love, and teamwork, the foundations of deep, lasting love at our age. At 60 and beyond, you deserve love that shows itself through consistent words backed by consistent action. These 7 phrases tell you that a man has moved beyond casual interest into genuine, committed love. The kind that sees you clearly, celebrates who you are, includes you in his future, and commits to facing life alongside you through the easy and the difficult. If you're hearing these phrases regularly from a man whose actions align with his words, you're experiencing genuine love. Honor it, nurture it, and let yourself trust it. If you're not hearing these phrases, pay attention to what that absence reveals about the depth of connection and commitment. If this conversation helped you recognize genuine love or understand what to listen for, I'd be grateful if you'd subscribe and join our community of women who understand the language of real love at our age. We're having honest conversations here about what actually creates lasting partnership. Until next time, listen for these phrases, trust what they reveal, and remember that genuine love shows itself through words backed by action, through integration, not isolation, through commitment, not ambiguity.